Good morning, friends. Paul Green here, comedianscommute.com. It is Monday, April 19th, and I am driving to work. It was a good weekend for me. I did have my first show as a headliner, I guess you could say, at the Tempe Center for the Arts. It was kind of a tri headlinership, a triple threat. It was me, Michael Longfellow, and Valerie Roberts. We are all students at comedyschools.com with Tony Visick, and this was our kind of chance to have our name in lights. It was a lot of fun. I thought the show went well. Definitely a lot of things I want to improve upon, but that's just kind of how it goes. Comedy is a art form, and you constantly have to work on your craft. It's like being a sculptor or a painter, and you work on it every day and try to get better and better and hone your craft. I had a cool conversation over the weekend with a comedian. His name is Andrew Norelli. I met Andrew. He was in town about 2 or 3 weeks ago and did a couple shows, and I was able to see him perform and buy one of his CDs. I've been listening to his CDs, and I reached out to him on Facebook. Really accessible guy, really nice, super funny, just really solid, funny comedian. And so I was talking to him about, writing and process, and he gave me a little nugget of wisdom, which I thought was cool. He told me that if you ever, when it comes to writing, he just said, what you need to do is you need to find one joke or one bit and then keep rewriting it and rewriting it and rewriting it and making it funnier and funnier and never being satisfied. And I thought that was interesting. He said it took him about 7 years of being a comedian and joke writing before he started to feel like he could write funny, original material. So 7 years of him honing his craft before he felt he was where he is today. And where he is today, I'll tell you, he is really funny. And he has 2 CDs out. I bought the first CD when I met him in person because he had them with him, and then I decided I wanted to buy his second CD, so he's going to send that out to me. So that was a fun little conversation, and good to be reminded of, and just kind of reiterated the importance of being willing to work hard at something and keep trying at something, understanding that it's a process. Very few things worthwhile happen overnight. They happen over long and consistent hard work and being willing to fail. And I just hopped on the freeway, and it is considerably slower than it usually is at this time in the morning. So 2 things might happen this morning. Number 1, I might be late for work. And number 2, your comedian's commute this morning might be a little bit longer than usual. But we'll have to see about that. So, as I was inspired by Andrew Norelli, I went back to the drawing board. I started just trying to write jokes. And I learned something, I relearned something that so often it sounds like comedians are just telling stories and they're being funny about it. But what I keep realizing again and again is what they are actually doing. They're telling actual jokes. They're just putting it within a context that makes it feel like it's like a real life story. And some of it is inspired by true events, I'm sure, but all a joke really is you paint a picture for your audience and you lead them down one way, and then you paint this picture, and then when they're not expecting it, you all of a sudden lead them down this way, and you shadow that picture with something new. And that's what makes people laugh, is they think it's one thing, but then it ends up being another. So the challenge that a lot of new comedians face, that I face as a new comedian, is forgetting that real fundamental principle, and instead we try to make this path just funny by saying it in a funny way or by acting it out in a funny way, and you can get some laughs that way. But what really makes a joke and what really seems to make an audience really laugh is when you're really good at setting them up and then breaking them down and telling them what they weren't expecting to hear. Like, for Father's Day, I took my dad out. He didn't wake up for 2 days. Not a very good joke, but that's a joke. You set people up thinking, oh, he took his dad out to like dinner for Father's Day, but instead I'm saying I took him out like I knocked him out or something. And that's really what jokes are. So last night I started writing jokes again, because I always have a tendency to try to lean on real life experiences and then just try to like say them funny way or do act outs or make comparisons with other things, and sometimes I just lose that basic joke structure. And I noticed that Friday night that I was being funny and the audience was enjoying themselves and they were laughing, but it's not like they were in hysterics the whole time. And that to me is an indication of a lack of legitimate setup punchline jokes in my set. And instead, I'm telling funny stories. Most of them have some sort of kernel of truth, and then I try to kind of elaborate that truth or whatever, and people enjoy it and appreciate it, and they laugh, but it doesn't get that laughter, and the laughs don't. I notice that I'm having a hard time like keeping the energy high, like the really talented comedians. Like if you listen to like a Jim Gaffigan or whatever, he's telling joke after joke after joke after joke, and the audience never really stops laughing. There's hardly ever a dip in the energy. And you see that with Brian Regan, you see it with Jerry Seinfeld, you see it with C.K. Lewis, Andrew Norelli, who I talked about. His CD is that way. They never laugh until the comedian actually gives them a break. And they'll do that sometimes, but it's like a purposeful thing to where, you know, they'll do about 15 minutes of just solid material. The audience has been cracking up, and then they'll maybe do a little bit of a longer setup, like instead of doing a 10-second setup with the joke, 10-second setup with the joke, maybe they'll do like a 45-second setup or a minute setup. But by that time, the audience has been laughing so much that they actually need a break, and you already have their attention, so you can do that. You can talk a little bit, or they'll go out and they'll talk to the crowd a little bit and just kind of. But it's more of a on purpose effort to just give the audience a little break. It's like, you know, even heavy rock bands, you know, will play a ballad, you know, 3 or 4 songs in, just to give the audience a chance to kind of recuperate from headbanging. I think that makes sense. So that's been my thought as of late. I think for my next set, I'll be doing another set here in a month. It'll just be a 5-minute set at Tempe Center for the Arts. I'm gonna focus on that. I just want to go back to joke telling and write jokes. Stephen Wright is an amazing joke teller. Mitch Hedberg is an amazing joke teller. And you watch Stephen Wright's set, he purposefully has no energy, and he just does that very dry, very droll, just, I bought some powdered water. I didn't know what to add. And it's just a one-liner, and he does that for an hour. Just straight hour of random, disjointed one-liners. He's not telling stories. He's not acting anything out. He just is telling jokes. A friend of mine sent me a postcard. It was a satellite picture of the entire Earth. And on the back he wrote, "Wish you were here." That's it. That's all he does. And Stephen Wright would do that, and people would crack up at every single one of those jokes because he was leading them down one path and nobody really knew where he was going with it. And then he would, all of a sudden, take him to the other way. And for some reason, we are stopped in the middle of Willis, which is odd because this is not a high-traffic street. Might have been a school bus. So, joke writing. You write it and you rewrite it. You set it up and you knock it down. You give people what they don't expect. You got to hone your craft. 7 years. You got to hone it for 7 years. And whatever it is that you're passionate about, whatever it is that you're into, if you put the daily time into it and you keep refining, and if you're never satisfied, then the payoff will be huge. Who knows, maybe in 7 years, I'll be good at doing Comedian's Commute in the morning. I don't know how long it's going to take, but it's going to be a daily, concerted effort at improving. Not being afraid of failure, recognizing that not everything is going to be great the first time you try it, but the willingness to continue to try and to keep trying harder and harder and harder at it, and honing your craft and learning and improving, etc., etc. And that is the path to someday me being able to stand in front of an audience and deliver a 60-minute, non-stop, hilarious stand-up comedy routine. And that is my Comedian's Commute for this morning. I have arrived at work. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Paul Green with comedianscommute.com and paulgreencomedy.com. Have a great Monday.